Hello, this is Mr. White. We're on Chapter 10. This is Lesson 4, Plant Reproduction. My Planet Diary. If Trees Could Talk. Suppose you had been alive during the ancient Egyptian Empire, the Middle Ages, or the American Revolution, both world wars. Think of the stories you could tell. Bristlecone pine trees can be this old. In 1964, a student got permission to cut down one of these trees. He counted the tree rings to see how old the tree was, and discovered it was 4,900 years old. He had just cut down the oldest living thing in the world. Today, bristlecone pine forests are protected. What are the stages of a plant's life cycle? Like other living things, plants develop and reproduce through life stages. Plants have complex life cycles that include two different stages: the sporophyte stage and the gametophyte stage. In the sporophyte stage, the plant produces spores. The spore develops into the plant's other stage, called the gametophyte. In the gametophyte stage, the plant produces two kinds of sex cells: sperm cells and egg cells. Angiosperms are classified based on the length of their life cycles. Flowering plants that complete a life cycle within one growing season are called annuals. Annuals include marigolds, petunias, wheat, and cucumbers. Angiosperms that complete their life cycle in 2 years are called biennials. In the first year, biennials germinate and grow roots, very short stems, and leaves. During their second year, biennials lengthen their stems, grow new leaves, and then produce flowers and seeds. Parsley, celery, and foxglove are biennials. Flowering plants that live for more than 2 years are called perennials. Most perennials flower every year. How do plants reproduce? Plants reproduce in different ways, depending on the structures and environment they live in. All plants undergo sexual reproduction that involves fertilization. Fertilization occurs when a sperm cell unites with an egg cell. The fertilized egg is called a zygote. For algae and some plants, fertilization can only occur if there is water in the environment. This is because the sperm cell of these plants swim through the water to the egg cells. Other plants, however, have an adaptation that makes it possible for fertilization to occur in dry environments. Many plants can also undergo asexual reproduction. Recall that asexual reproduction includes only one parent and produces offspring that are identical to the parent. New plants can grow from the roots, leaves, or stems of a parent plant. Asexual reproduction does not involve flowers, pollination, or seeds, so it can happen faster than sexual reproduction. A single plant can quickly spread out in an environment if there are good conditions. However, asexual reproduction can reproduce unfavorable traits since there is no new genetic information being passed to offspring. Scientists can take advantage of asexual reproduction in plants. A single plant can be used to create identical plants for experiments. Scientists can also copy plants with favorable characteristics. Grafting is one way of copying plants. In grafting, part of a plant's stem is cut and attached to another related plant species, such as a lemon tree and an orange tree. The plant matures and can then produce more than one kind of fruit. Non-vascular and seedless vascular plants. Mosses, liverworts, hornworts, ferns, club mosses, and horsetails need to grow in moist environments. This is because the plants release spores into their surroundings, where they grow in the gametophytes. When the gametophytes produce egg cells and sperm cells, there must be enough water available for the sperm to swim toward the egg. For example, the familiar fern, with its visible fronds, is the sporophyte stage of the plant. On the underside of mature fronds, spores develop in tiny spore cases. Wind and water can carry the spores great distances. If a spore lands in moist, shaded soil, it develops into a gametophyte. Spermgametophytes are tiny plants that grow low to the ground. Gymnosperms. You can follow the process of gymnosperm reproduction in Figure 3. Cone production. Most gymnosperms have reproductive structures called cones. Cones are covered with scales. Most gymnosperms produce two types of cones, male cones and female cones. Usually a single plant produces both male and female cones. In some types of gymnosperms, however, individual trees produce either male or female cones. A few gymnosperms produce no cones. Pollen production and ovule development. A male cone produces pollen grains. Cells in the pollen will mature into sperm cells. B. The female gametophyte develops in structures called ovules. An ovule is a structure that contains an egg cell. Female cones contain at least one ovule at the base of each scale. The ovule later develops into the seed. Egg production. Two egg cells form inside each ovule on the female cone. Pollination. The transfer of pollen from a male reproductive structure to a female reproductive structure is called pollination. In gymnosperms, wind often carries the pollen from the male cone to the female cone. The pollen collects in a sticky substance produced by each ovule. Fertilization. Once pollination has occurred, the ovule closes and seals in the pollen. The scales also close, and a sperm cell fertilizes an egg cell inside each ovule. The zygote then develops into the embryo part of the seed. Seed development. Female cones remain on the tree while the seeds mature. As the seeds develop, the female cone increases in size. It can take up to 2 years for the seeds of some gymnosperms to mature. Male cones, however, usually fall off the tree after they have shed their pollen. Seed dispersal. When the seeds are mature, the scales open. The wind shakes the seeds out of the cone and carries them away. Only a few seeds will land in suitable places and grow into new plants. Angiosperms. You can follow angiosperm reproduction in Figure 4. First, pollen fall on a flower's stigma. In time, the sperm cell and eggs join together in the flower's ovule. The zygote develops into the embryo part of the seed. Pollination. A flower is pollinated when a grain of pollen falls on the stigma. Some angiosperms are pollinated by the wind, but most rely on other organisms. When an organism enters a flower to obtain food, it becomes coated with pollen. Some of the pollen can drop onto the flower stigma as the animal leaves. The pollen can also be brushed onto the stigma of the next flower the animal visits. Fertilization. If the pollen fall on the stigma of a similar plant, fertilization can occur. A sperm cell joins with an egg cell inside an ovule within the ovary at the base of a flower. The zygote then begins to develop into the seed's embryo. Other parts of the ovule develop into the rest of the seed. Fruit development and seed dispersal. As the seed develops, the ovary changes into a fruit. A fruit is the ripened ovary and other structures that enclose one or more seeds. Fruits include apples, cherries, tomatoes, squash, and many others. Fruits are the means by which angiosperm seeds are dispersed. Animals that eat fruits help to disperse their seeds by depositing them in new areas.